On the last episode of Easy on Cars, we looked at our Garrett turbochargers, looked at some possible intercoolers, and then tried to mock everything up onto the car. Today we're preparing for the turbos. We'll remove the intake and the exhaust, and by the end we'll have all the parts we need to fabricate our turbo manifolds. First up, we head to the internet to get our exhaust parts on order. While we wait for that stuff to show up, we'll get started taking this thing apart. So this is the cheap oil pressure gauge I got from the web. I think it's branded Glow Shift, some crap like that. I intended on buying a fancier one, but right now I'm just gonna be happy to have something versus nothing. So we'll run this. You just put it where the factory oil pressure switch went. And we've talked about how useless that is in the first place, so this will give us a lot better info. So before I can do too much more mocking up, I'm going to have to cut all the plastic out of the bumper like I was talking about. And once that's done, I can try to fit the intercoolers a little bit better, and we can start to finalize where some things are going to live. So for now, I'm going to start hacking up the bumper cover. So I realize that some of you are going to look at this and be absolutely mortified, but let me assure you that this bumper was in very rough shape before I even started to do this. So now I've modified it to have a window for each intercooler where the fog lamps would be. The actual 2.5i never came with fog lamps, so it was just covers. And actually I was missing one of the covers. So here's how it looks after I've modified it here. This is kind of where a lot of the damage was beforehand. I'll probably be epoxying that up and kind of cleaning it up. And it is really dirty sitting here, but basically just cut out around there as best as I could. And it was already looking really rough right there. So then this is a really common thing to do for front mount intercoolers. Probably not completely necessary. I did have to take off the sides here though, just so that my intercoolers can fit. And this side actually looks way better. I still have some cleaning up that I can do with some little plastic bits sticking out, but I'm actually pretty happy with that. And I actually sized it up, and if you notice how much farther out this comes than say the headlight, which stops like right there, there's actually going to be a lot of room back here for the intercooler on each side, so pretty pumped about that. And this bumper's shaping up. So I just got my manifolds back from the sandblaster, and now they're looking pretty shiny. So nice smooth mating surface here. Managed to get all the carbon buildup that was inside. Flange looks good. Still have to cut off the EGR piping there, but not a big deal. We'll take the welder to that. So now what I can do is take off the exhaust that's currently on the Subaru, and I can mount these things up and start getting an idea for fitment of exactly how the uppipe and stuff is going to fit. So that's what I'm going to do. Start taking off the exhaust. Alright, so I've just unbolted the exhaust manifold, and the entire exhaust is now off the car, and then I went ahead and bolted up the new freshly sandblasted manifold. So I'm going to show those to you. Let's see here. There they are. As promised, they can be bolted up. There was a little bit of a clearance deal with that, but you can't really tell. It was just confusing at first. It actually does fit if you put that side in first. Same thing over here. And you can see we've got quite a bit of room here to make some sort of manifold. And same thing on this side, there's a bit of room. And then if you get up here and look, kind of where I had shown before, you can see, I'll block out some of the light for you, you can see that window, and right through the window, kind of glowing there. And if you look there, you can basically just see the manifold, and you can kind of get the idea of how it will bolt to the turbo. We can come over on this side, look basically the same thing. I have generically mounted up the turbo there, just kind of sitting in place for now. And then again, right back there, you can see where the end of the manifold comes off. You can see the path either through the window or below the U-frame here is where I'm planning to mount them. Right now I currently have it oriented with the flange down here, because I think with this turbo that might work better, because without having to turn the housing, it kind of puts this up in the air, which gives it less of a profile in this direction, so kind of tucks it in a little bit more. But we'll see if that's where it goes, but that's where it's kind of just sitting right now for this demonstration. So I'm just going to bust out the welder for this one small thing here. I'm going to fill the old EGR valve and seal it off, so that way no exhaust gas ever goes through that hole again. So to do that, I'm going to use my Hobart Handler 140, and yeah, that's plenty sufficient. So let's weld it up. Just had a moment of like depressing thought where I was like, why am I taking apart my beautiful H6 swapped Impreza? What happened to it? It was just running. Why is there just parts laying pretty much everywhere? And then I thought, oh yeah, because we're gonna turbo this bitch. Don't forget that you're supposed to have fun while you work on your projects, so make sure you take a minute and have a beer and watch some Top Gear. Next up, I pull off the intake and get rid of all those old SVX vacuum and vent lines that are no longer needed. We want underneath this intake to be very clean. So my basic plan was to rotate the intake 180 degrees, and then that would give a real simple access point for basically the intercooler piping to come right up into the intake from the front of the car. And that actually looks like it won't work very well, because if you look at side profile, you can see that is the throttle body sticking up. So that would take some major hood modifications. I know that if I rotate the lower intake also, not just the upper intake, it will probably give me an extra inch or so. Doesn't quite look like an inch of clearance, but that is not going to work for the setup that I'm looking to do. I want it to look pretty stock. I'm not going to have any weird shape in the front of my hood. So right now it looks like I might have to keep the intake facing the normal direction. Alright, so as of late I've been waiting on some parts before I can start fabricating my exhaust setup, and what we have here is some parts. So let's see what we got. We got some mandrel bends here that I picked up from Speedway Motors. These are 2-inch mild steel 16 gauge. These are basically going to go from the back of the manifold to the turbo, and they'll have the turbo flange attached on one side and a flange that mounts up with the manifolds on the other side. So that's what these two are for. This guy is kind of experimental. This is 2.5-inch mild steel, again 16 gauge, and I think this might be our dump pipe, and we're going to see how that works. Right now I'm not exactly sure, but it's about the right size, so once we get that far, we got that as a possibility. From there, I'll just cover the flanges. These are the flanges that I had to order to complete the setup. These will go on the manifold, so this pipe, manifold, and then these are the actual turbo flanges. Get a little close up there. They are mild steel, even though they don't look like it. And both of these will be where we actually bolt the turbo. And then these guys right here are post-turbo flange. That'll be what we put this pipe into, I believe. So have some pretty big dump pipes compared to what's on the car right now. I think it was 1 7/8 or 1 5/8 maybe. Was the stock SVX exhaust, or the Impreza exhaust that I had made, and this is going to be a lot bigger, and hopefully it lasts a while, because my welder can really only do mild steel. So maybe we'll paint them or coat them in some way once we get them done, but for now these are the parts it's going to take to make the Impreza a twin turbo H6. So stick around and let's get that done. Next time on Easy on Cars, we actually start fabricating the turbo manifolds. What's that, pup? You want a turbocharge? Should we put the turbos on the car? Turbo? If you like Easy on Cars, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe and stick around for the next episode.